I want to move on to number 3 of the list, U.S.-China breakdown. And I want to talk about that relationship that's going to happen between China and the United States and how that will change in less than 2 weeks when Donald Trump takes the oath of office again. I was speaking with a U.S.-China expert, Gordon Chang, and he said, I don't even think Donald Trump should pick up the phone and call President Xi. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Gordon Chang has been saying that China is going to collapse for decades now, and he is one of the most public anti-China intellectuals in the country. So recognize when you're talking to Gordon, and he's a very smart guy, I know him well, that you're talking to someone with a very particular and actually quite extreme viewpoint on this issue. I don't have that view. I don't think China is about to collapse. And I also recognize that the U.S. and China do a lot together that is not going to go away tomorrow, irrespective of whether you'd like it to. But I do believe, and I think Gordon probably agrees with this, I do believe that U.S.-China relations are going to get a lot worse in the near term. Now, Gordon probably the fact that Trump invited Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration, which, by the way, is the first time any American president has ever done that. But Trump, is not an ideologue. At the end of the day, I mean, there are things that Trump feels ideologically about, like tariffs. But Trump, he was the one guy that reached out to Kim Jong-un and sat down and met with him. So the fact that Xi Jinping happens to be a dictator doesn't bother Trump. Not if he gets a good deal. I mean, if Trump would be more than happy to sell a condo to Xi Jinping if he offered him a better price for it, right? I mean, that's the way Trump works. And so the question is whether or not there is a deal to be done. And the reason I think the U.S.-China relationship is going to get worse is because I don't think there is a deal to be done. I think that there will be higher tariffs against China. I think there will be more technology export controls. I think there will be more support for Taiwan from the Trump administration and from the Republicans in Congress. And what the Chinese are prepared to offer will be inadequate. They'll buy soybeans, they'll buy some Boeing planes if there were any that were being manufactured. They'll do some other stuff, but it's going to be small ball. And it won't be enough to stop the Americans from hitting the Chinese in the face. And I think that's going to lead to a decoupling of the overall economic relationship, and I think it will lead to tit-for-tat hits on trade, export controls, and other constraints that will make it harder to do business with each other, and that will have costs for the global economy.
Talk about that a little bit. If we're having tit-for-tat hits there, if the relationship between the United States and China is getting worse, if there's a decoupling, what does that mean for the rest of the world, and what does that mean for the everyday American?
For the everyday American, it's broadly inflationary because Chinese goods are inexpensive. It is certainly true that a greater inshoring will eventually lead to more investment and more jobs in the United States. And that will be a benefit for American workers. It's very analogous to what Trump intends to do with illegal immigrants, right? I mean, the Chinese have taken American jobs. Illegal immigrants have taken American jobs. And if you get rid of the Chinese, you don't get those cheap goods. If you get rid of the illegal immigrants, you don't get that cheap labor. You also don't get their taxes because they are consumers. They pay Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff. That'll also be inflationary. It will raise labor rates, but there'll be more jobs for Americans. And you'll have to pay more. And the corporates will get squeezed, and the American workers will do better. And Trump is willing to take that bet, right? I mean, this is a Republican Party that actually did better with poor Americans than with rich Americans. The Democrats did better with urban, educated intellectuals, right? So I think Trump is leaning into that, and I think he's willing to tolerate a level of higher inflation. So he's not going to get the price of eggs down quickly, but he is going to make good on some other promises, like on tariffs and on deportations. Now, other countries in the world do not share America's perspective here, and they want to work with China and the United States, and they're going to get squeezed. It's going to be very uncomfortable for other countries.